Good afternoon. I really intended to start this session today talking about how the grooming techniques of vigilantes and police actually mirror exactly the sorts of things that some of us are experiencing out in the field and accused of by the police and these same vigilante groups. In other words, they are actually very much expert on what grooming is because they actually practice a lot of it. At the same time, though, something preempted me, and I wanted to discuss that. And then I'll finish with a little bit on one particular police officer who face justice for what he did. So the story comes from the NARSOL newsletter, most recent one out, the National Association for Rational Sex Offender Laws. And even though they're not always in agreement with NARSOL, because their bent seems to be to keep the registry, but to not make it non-public and other mitigating factors instead of simply throwing it out. Um, this is a good reason toward the latter, which is throwing it out. They publish a case out of West Virginia of a man named McGough, and MC capital Gough. And this guy McGough, briefly, was an Ohio resident. He had satisfied his requirement to register in Ohio. Again, this is according to the article, and moved to West Virginia. When he moved to West Virginia, however, authorities found out about this and they charged him with failure to register. His contention is he was not required to register in Ohio, having fulfilled his time. Therefore, he was not a registrant moving to another state, which is apparently something they didn't explain well, but clearly had to be the case. So he's not a registrant anywhere, so he doesn't have to register. It's as if he had made his time and is no longer required to register. Makes sense. However, West Virginia viewed that separately at the appellate level. So the circuit court agreed that that made perfect sense. However, the state, in their continuing attempt to punish people who have been convicted, usually by their shenanigans, I shouldn't say usually, sometimes by their shenanigans, with a sex offense, they appealed to the next level, and the appeals court reversed the circuit court's viewpoint. The circuit court, under West Virginia law, was not allowed to reverse the true bill that the grand jury had put forth, claiming that this man who had moved into the state violated West Virginia law by failing to register in a timely fashion or at all. Of course, the contention was of Mr. McGough that he had no more duty to register, therefore, he should not have to be a lifetime registrant in West Virginia. The appeals court disagreed. And not only did they require him to register, but cited him for failure to register in a timely fashion, even though he had every reason to believe that he should not be registered at all since he had satisfied that commitment in another state. And the law clearly says that if you go into another state as a registrant, you are required to register. He was not a registrant any longer. He had been cleared by the Ohio authorities. Therefore, what was the duty to register? This case underscores the danger that people are in of continual, perpetual punishment, whether they did something or not, simply because they're on the damn list called the SOR, the Sex Offender Registry. And it comes out of the federal guidelines. We even have federal cases where states have said, yeah, you're okay. And the federal has come in on top of them and required them to register. So this is a simple case that should have been you did your time, you did the crime, you did your time, or you were said to do your crime and you still did the time, and the punishment continues. All right. So that's tragic enough. But there's another case as we move into the grooming bit where you see police officers once more, once they are caught, they are not interested in receiving any justice for it. Frequently, they get out of this. CNN.com is reporting that Kansas uh, detective named Golubsky. Roger Golubsky died by his own hand And sadly, uh, some paragraph 8 or 9 in this, it says after lengthy investigation of Mr. Golubsky, they had determined that he was seriously in violation of people's individual sovereignty by raping them, by attacking them, by committing sexual offenses again, sexual misconduct over and over again, dating back 40 years to the 1980s. And these were, chronicled on the front pages of the local newspaper, the Kansas City Star, resulting in, a lot of scorn and ridicule on him, as perhaps it should be. Um, and at first, of course, they had excused Golubsky, claiming there was scant evidence beyond the word of Golubsky's alleged victims. Compare that, of course, to what those of us in the sex stings go through, where we don't even have to have any evidence of any actual victims. We don't have to have any furtherance of the crime evidence at all, that we had done anything at all, and you can still get convicted. Now, people say, well, you were on a dating site, or you were, yes, that's true, we were. But libido is not an excuse to convict somebody of a crime. And very often the police have to get heavily involved with crafting and massaging the circumstantial facts in order to get a conviction, which a judge is happy to do because the judge gets kudos from the state legislature for actually um, convicting you. It's a sick system, but that's their system. Okay. And so, unfortunately, eventually what happened is they did, in fact, go after him and for multiple cases, multiple sexual assaults against black women over courses of decades. They handpicked his victims because he was confident that they would not be believed. He ended up denying the allegations multiple times, and of course, eventually they went after him, and he was involved in sex trafficking of underage girls in a second case. Here I'm reading, and it came to light as part of this double murder for hire bit, very complicated stuff. But eventually, what Mr. Golubsky did when he saw that he could no longer hide behind his badge and that the system would no longer support him, he committed suicide. And unfortunately, this is a lot of what we see out there, that the real baddies are people with badges who hide behind public offices or in other ways have the position of trust of the people, and they're allowed to get away with it for a long, long time. I mean, multiple decades, 40 years. I mean, come on, really? I mean, some of us don't last 40 minutes when we're convicted on highly suspect evidence. So that just gives you an idea as a precursor to going about the whole grooming business and talking about how these vigilante groups do their work and how cops will do their work hiding behind charitable organizations, hiding behind organizations that work with children in order to abuse their badge and do real grooming because they know what they're doing when they create a turnkey system and net the rest of us claiming we're doing what they're actually doing. With that, for the second day of December 2024, this is Norman Michaelation for I.C.A.C. Unpacked. Have a nice day.